Water conducts heat away from the human body 25 times faster than air. A wet hoodie at 50 degrees pulls heat out of you faster than a dry jacket at 35. 700 people experiencing homelessness die from hypothermia in America every year. And the CDC confirms it can happen at temperatures as warm as 50 degrees if the person is wet. But thousands of people survive rainstorms on the street every week using methods that would make a survival instructor nod. So, how do you stay alive when the sky opens up and you have nowhere to go? Here's the thing about rain on the street. Cold by itself is dangerous, but wet and cold together is a medical emergency on a completely different timeline. Wet clothing increases your body's conductive heat loss by 5 times. That hoodie that kept you comfortable at 55 degrees in dry air is now actively pulling heat out of your body faster than you can produce it. Your core temperature starts dropping. Shivering kicks in, and hypothermia doesn't announce itself. It creeps in as confusion, then drowsiness, then a strange feeling of warmth right before your organs start shutting down. Roughly 2,520 Americans died from hypothermia in 2023. A study on homeless mortality found that hypothermia deaths are 13 times more frequent among people on the street than in the general population. So the first line of defense costs less than $1. A heavy-duty contractor trash bag costs about 30 cents at a hardware store. They are 3 mil thick. Use the black ones. Cut a hole for your head and 2 for your arms, and you have a waterproof poncho in 30 seconds. But experienced rough sleepers go further. A second bag becomes a sleeping bag liner, so ground moisture does not soak into blankets. A third goes over the backpack. A fourth wraps around shoes to keep them dry while sleeping. Survivalist forums specifically recommend contractor cleanup bags over kitchen bags because the thicker plastic resists tearing for days instead of hours. During rainy season, non-profits distribute charity kits with a $1 disposable poncho, a Mylar emergency blanket and dry socks. That is considered the survival trio. The poncho stops rain, the Mylar reflects body heat, and the dry socks prevent the single worst medical consequence of prolonged wet exposure. We will get to that in a minute. But a trash bag keeps rain off your body. It does nothing about the ground underneath you. And that is where rain actually does its worst damage. A $5 blue hardware store tarp is the single most important piece of rain survival gear on the street, but how you set it up determines whether you wake up dry or soaking. The standard technique uses 2 tarps, one overhead, angled so water sheets off to one side, one underneath as a ground sheet. The critical rule is the ground tarp. If any edge of it extends beyond the overhead tarp, rain runs off the top directly onto the bottom and funnels underneath you like a bathtub filling up. Experienced rough sleepers fold all edges inward, tucking them under the sleeping area so water has nowhere to collect. If the ground is soft, they dig a shallow trench around the perimeter with a stick and angle it downhill. A single tarp against a wall at 45 degrees creates a lean-to that sheds water to one side. A length of rope between 2 fixed points creates a ridgeline for an A-frame that handles rain from any direction. During the January 2023 storms in San Francisco, reporters observed homeless camps with tents covered in multiple overlapping tarps staked with heavy boards and bricks, holding together through winds gusting to 90 miles per hour. Pretty impressive, right? But tarps and trash bags handle what falls from the sky. There is a part of your body that stays wet long after the rain stops, and the damage it causes was first documented over 200 years ago. Trench foot. First described in 1812 during Napoleon's retreat from Russia. Over 20,000 British soldiers were treated for it in the first winter of World War I. It does not require freezing temperatures. The condition can develop at 60 degrees Fahrenheit if your feet stay wet for as little as 10 to 14 hours. Wet feet lose heat 25 times faster than dry feet. Your body responds by constricting blood vessels in the foot to prevent further heat loss. Without blood flow, tissue starts dying. The foot goes numb, turns red, then blue, and then starts to smell of decay as tissue breaks down. In severe cases, gangrene sets in. A medical journal published a case about a 41-year-old homeless man in Switzerland who spent 2 days in rainy, non-freezing weather and required bilateral below-knee amputation. Both legs gone after 48 hours of rain. The homeless population is specifically identified in medical literature as susceptible because they lack the one thing that prevents trench foot, the ability to change into dry socks. Dry socks are among the most requested donation items at every homeless shelter in the country. But dry socks do not help if you cannot find anywhere dry to put them on. And during a storm, the most valuable thing on the street is not a tarp or a bag. It is a spot with a roof. Every city has an invisible map of dry spots that only people sleeping outside know. Highway overpasses are the most iconic, with concrete overhead, thick pillars that break the wind, and locations that are essentially invisible to anyone driving above at 60 miles per hour. Parking garages offer complete protection on dry concrete. 24-hour laundromats provide warmth, dry air, and an outlet for charging a phone. Building awnings and recessed doorways work as emergency spots, but they fall apart in wind-driven rain. Big box store overhangs get heavy use during storms. The competition for these spots is fierce. People who have been on the street for months know every dry overhang and covered alcove within a mile. And here it gets complicated. Private security patrols many of these covered areas and will chase people away during active storms. Spots that would keep someone alive are often locked, gated, or guarded. That's when city emergency systems are supposed to activate. Inclement weather shelters are emergency beds that open only when specific thresholds are met. In San Diego, activation happens when the temperature hits 50 degrees Fahrenheit or below with a 40% chance of rain. Father Joe's Villages transforms its dining rooms into overnight shelters during storms, providing meals, cots, showers, and dry clothes. In Los Angeles, the Homeless Services Authority distributed motel vouchers serving over 5,400 people during the previous winter. The LA mission added 325 cots to its 400 permanent beds. It sounds like the system is working. But San Diego had 55 inclement weather beds for an estimated 1,700 people sleeping outdoors downtown. One bed for every 31 people. And the barriers go beyond numbers. Barriers include fear of belongings being stolen, distrust of group settings, inability to bring a pet, and no way to find available beds online. During the 2023 San Francisco storms, outreach teams found people who had no way to search online for open shelters at all. If you're finding this useful, hit subscribe. I cover survival and hidden systems like this every week. Now, everything so far applies to people sleeping on sidewalks, in tents or under bridges, but a massive population already has a roof, sort of. The Greater Los Angeles Homeless Count 2024 found that over 23,000 people in Los Angeles County live in their vehicles on any given night. That is more than 44% of the county's unsheltered population. A vehicle sounds like the perfect rain shelter, but anyone who has slept in a car during a storm knows the real enemy is not rain getting in. It is moisture building up from the inside. Body heat and breathing generate humidity that condenses on cold windows and metal surfaces, soaking the interior from within. Cracking a window 1 to 2 inches allows moisture to escape without letting rain in. A rooftop vent fan solves the problem entirely, and it costs about $50. Parking on a slight incline keeps water from pooling underneath. And the most common rain failure in older vehicles is not the roof, it is the seals. Worn rubber around doors and windows lets water seep in silently. Self-adhesive weather stripping from a hardware store costs $5 to $10 and fixes it in minutes. But vehicles and tarps solve the overhead problem. Neither one solves what happens when the thing keeping you warm is already soaking wet and you cannot replace it. That is what a Dutch fashion school graduate named Bas Timmer set out to fix. A friend's father who was homeless died of hypothermia while sitting outside a shelter, waiting for it to open 500 meters from a building designed to keep him alive. Timur launched the Shelter Suit Foundation, which produces a waterproof jacket made from upcycled tent fabric that zips into a full sleeping bag at night. An oversized hood shields the face from rain and from streetlights. The inner lining comes from upcycled sleeping bags. Over 6,000 have been distributed worldwide. For warmer climates, the foundation developed the Shelter Bag, a lightweight waterproof sleeping bag with a hood that rolls into a yoga mat carrier during the day. The first production run was designed at SXW in Austin, built from donated conference banners and funded by a single attendee who wrote a $5,000 check for 100 units. A separate non-profit distributes the backpack bed, a 6.6-pound backpack that unfolds into a full waterproof sleeping shelter with a built-in insulated mattress through over 40 US agencies. Every one of these products follows the same principle. Your rain protection and your sleep system should be the same object. So, what does all of this actually look like for one person on one night when the forecast says rain? Feel the air pressure drop, check the sky. You have maybe 30 minutes. Move to the best overhead cover you can find. If nothing is available, set up the tarp. Angle it so water runs off one side. Dig a trench if the ground is soft. Lay the ground sheet underneath, edges folded inward, get the trash bag poncho on. Put a second bag over the backpack, put a third bag over the sleeping bag. Pull your feet out of wet shoes and socks. Put dry socks on if you have them. If you do not have dry socks, keep your bare feet inside a dry bag. Tuck your phone into a sealed plastic bag and keep it against your body. Listen to the rain hit the tarp, try to sleep, wake up and do the damage assessment. Dry what you can, replace what you cannot. Total cost of the rain survival system: 30 cents for a contractor bag, $5 for a tarp, $1 for rope, and the knowledge that every rainstorm is a countdown against your own body temperature. The average person hears rain on a window and reaches for a warmer blanket. These folks hear rain on a tarp and start calculating how many hours until their core temperature drops below 95 degrees. That kind of awareness every night it rains deserves a lot more recognition than it gets. If you want to see how else people survive on the street with almost nothing, that video is on screen right now.